team. Here are your 6 EAL consultants, and our supervisor is Sonia Stapleton, and our area director is Holly Sheely. And again, these are your main points of contact if you have any questions. And this year, we are blessed to have 3 extremely talented and dedicated EAL DDLTs. You may see them out in your classrooms at your school. So we have Jessica Kelso, Jennifer Brennan, and China Burkett. And as we gather here today, we are living and breathing our district's mission and vision of living and learning in our Catholic faith so that students centered in Christ realize their full potential. And more specifically today, we are all learning and growing in our knowledge of how to best support the linguistically and culturally diverse students that we serve. And so our hope is today that we will review the EAL Initial Assessment Card process, the pre-approved grade 1 code 303 student next steps. So these were our kindergarten students last year that were identified, and the process for coding 303 students throughout the year. Now, starting the CM Global English Assessment for new EAL registrations, you will begin by going to useful links on our district site, and you're going to click on Parent Forms. Now, Parent Forms is now called Zenith, and all DLCTs and DLTs will have access to this, and this is where you can determine possible EAL students who will require administration of the CM Global English Assessment. So you will start by clicking on your school and the current school year, and then click on all registrations. Now at the very top, there's a bar that you can search, and by typing language into the search, you should bring a list of students that you will assess. Now we have been finding that some students are not being identified this way, so some may have been missed. So you may also want to filter another way to catch these missed students or see if you had any missed students. So on the home dashboard of all registrations, you will click on Show Filter, Student Citizenship, where was the student born? You'll click on Select Value, and then Outside Canada, and click on View, and you can scroll down in the student's report to Student Citizenship, where it will give the primary language at home. And if the student has a primary language other than English, you will administer the CM Global English Assessment. And then step number 3 would be determine an overall EAL working level by considering all appropriate language strands. Now, if students have completed the digital CM Global English Assessment, they will have provided a writing sample. And so we're asking you to please provide a light, so I'll say that again, light annotation to the writing sample. And you'll start by referring to the student's divisional benchmarks to assess the 3 competencies of vocabulary, sentence structure, and cohesive devices to determine the student's overall EAL writing level. Then the final steps include combining the 3 subtest scores with the writing level to determine the student's overall working proficiency level. K and grade 1s will only have listening and speaking levels. And then circle the identified benchmark level in the box at the bottom of the report. And you will upload the completed student report to the EAL Initial Assessment Card in EdForms by September 19th. And this was just for your reference of what some simple annotation would look like. Now, I did happen to write out, like I put a box around some simple descriptive words, and I did write simple descriptive words. But if you just put SDW that is completely fine. And if you underlined the sentence, which happens to be a simple sentence, and you put SS, that's a simple sentence. And then you'll see that I identified no use of cohesive devices. You could also use highlighters and then just identify the legend of vocabulary, sentence structure, and cohesive devices. And so this student was working level 1 in all 3 competencies. And so the overall working writing level is level 1. And then as I look up at those subtests, there was a 1, 1, a 2, and then the writing was a 1, and the overall EAL working level is a level 1. So the level you're circling at the bottom is the overall EAL working level as you've considered all of the appropriate strands. And this one is from grade 11, and it is a working level 3. And you can see I did the same thing. I highlighted a sentence. I put complex, even if you just put C, or simple, CS, or simple sentence, SS, and highlighted vocabulary, just an example of a cohesive device. And then I also wrote basic paragraph. And so for this student, the subtests were 3, 4, 4, and their writing was an overall working level 3. So we are considering 2 3s and 2 4s. And so we identified an overall average level of level 3, and that's what we circled. And so a common question that we get is, what if one of the foreign-born students comes out as a level 4 or 5 on global English, and I feel they don't require language supports? So a student who has at least one subtest score of level 4 requires a 301 code. EAL supports and a benchmark. Their working level would be identified as a level 4 until more information and assessments are gathered through the year. If the student's benchmarks are indicating level 5 by the end of the year, you'll work with your EAL consultant to start the DEMIT process. And if a student has scored level 5 on all the subtests, then the teacher assessor will use their professional judgment to determine if in fact the student requires EAL supports and coding. And on the new EAL Initial Assessment Card, there is the option of checking English speaking, no EAL code required for students who score level 5 on all subtests. And so here we've just linked, so when you receive the presentation, which we will be emailing out to all DLCTs, you can click on these links to see some helpful documents. So we have the EAL Initial Assessment EdForms page, cheat sheet, and then Global English supporting document. Also, we have the recording from last August from the registration team of EAL Initial Proficiency Assessment and Coding process. Know that a few things might be slightly different. And then we also have updated the FAQ summary sheet that you can reference. When you have received your codes, you may have already seen that they are identified a little bit different than with grades. And so we have this slide so you can refer back that our K1, you want to administer to kindergarten grade 1 students. Late primary, you're going to administer to grade 2, 3 students. Intermediate, administer to grade 4 to 7 students. And secondary, administer to grade 8 to 12 students. If you do not have codes or you have used your codes and need more, you can reach out to Catherine Olson and she will be able to help you. Now, the EAL Initial Assessment Cards are due September 19th, including the pre-approved kindergarten to grade 1, so grade 1 303 students. But also know that this process continues throughout the year, so you want to continue to reach out to your EAL consultant and follow this process for all new 301 and 303 registrations through the year. And I just threw some snippets in here of how to create an EAL EdForms Initial Assessment Card. So when you click on a student's EdForm, you'll start by clicking on the blue circle with the white plus sign, and you will click on Form Type, and you're going to choose Plan. And then you're going to click on EAL Initial Assessment and save. And then you will see that you have two options to click on. So one of the options is no EAL coding required, English language support not required. So this is new this year. You would just write briefly, this student is an English speaker, this student is proficient in English. This way we can track which students that were foreign born, and we can add a note in PowerSchool. So it helps us keep track of our students. And then for the students who do require EAL coding, you would click on EAL coding required, English language support is required, and then fill in, is the student born in Canada, yes or no? And again, that will help us with the coding. 301 students are foreign born and 303 students are Canadian born. And then you will add in their languages spoken at home. And so this should be a language that is not English, because if English is their primary language, they would not be able to be coded as an English as an additional language student. And the naming convention, you'll see there it says upload EAL initial assessment. This was the assessment from CM Global English, where you have done some annotating on writing, or it possibly could just be the speaking assessment. And if you could kindly label this EAL initial assessment underscore the student's first and last name's initials underscore and the date of the assessment. Now, the EAL proficiency benchmark level is the student's current working level. And then you'll also add in the date of the EAL assessment. And again, these cards are due September 19th. And as always, please make sure to save and initiate the workflow. I know we're able to take a peek at drafts, and there are quite a few drafts out there. If you have made one and you're not sure if you have initiated that workflow, you may find it in drafts there. Here you can see at the top in blue, there is a cheat sheet of how to add an EAL initial assessment. So that's there for your reference. And so our next steps for after we have done that initial assessment, EAL initial assessment card, is we will be creating benchmarks. Now, we have been told by EdForms that there are some updates happening right now. And so if you could just stay out of benchmarks for now. Again, the benchmark part is not due on September 19th, but we will send you an email when you're able to get in and start working on benchmarks. But students in kindergarten, grade 2, 4, 7, and 10, they are starting a new benchmark division. These students have a benchmark card created, but you will need to populate the levels in the benchmark using the levels found in the 2024-2025 archived benchmarks. And all other students have their benchmark cards automatically created, and those levels have been rolled over, so they're populated. Any new EAL coded students that you are creating those initial assessment cards for, you will be creating a benchmark card and populating those levels. Again, the EAL initial assessment card is due September 19th. The benchmark does not have to be created by that date. And any pre-approved code 303 students, you will be creating that EAL initial assessment card, like we just reviewed, and then creating a benchmark card and populating with the levels from the initial assessment. And brand new, a new update from Alberta Education regarding our annotated evidence. Alberta Education has set a new earlier due date to support timely planning for EAL students. This earlier date helps schools identify students' needs sooner, so supports can be in place earlier in the year. So schools must update a minimum of one benchmark strand for each EAL student and upload one corresponding piece of student annotated evidence into EdForms prior to Friday, November 21st. So this due date is new for us. A recommendation is to use student writing or speaking samples as evidence. And again, that would be annotated evidence, annotated using the benchmarks as your rubric. And you can click here to access a recorded PG that will guide you through the new EAL collection of evidence site, which really will support your school in annotating, speaking, and/or writing for evidence collection. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kim, who's going to be giving us some information on the 303 Canadian-born coding process.
Thank you so much, Carrie. So I'm going to be going through this process. So these are those students in kindergarten from last year that were put forward for possible 303 coding. You would have gotten an email in June 2025 with those that are approved. But on the next slide, you'll see that you should have a reminder email from all of the EAL consultants of those approved kindergarten to grade 1 303 students. If you didn't receive an email and you're just wondering because maybe you're new to the school, please feel free to reach out to your EAL consultant to double check if there are some students. As well, if you get your email and you notice that there is a student on there that is no longer at your school, please let your EAL consultant know, because then we can find out what school they're at so that we can make sure they get that proper coding. So once you have that approved list, you are going to administer the initial speaking assessment that is from Global English. And so you can find this on our EAL course site under the DLCT corner, and then you'll see under EAL registration, you'll have that K-1 speaking assessment. So once you administer the speaking assessment, if a student, on the next slide you'll see, if a student achieves a working level 3 or above, then you are going to administer the online assessment with one of your Global English codes. If on that speaking assessment you determine that student scores a working level 2, then you will stop there and use that as their evidence for the EAL Initial Assessment Card. So on the next slide, you'll kind of see a summary of for that kindergarten to grade 1 303 coding. If they're a level 1 and 2, you would stick with the paper assessment, but if you determine they're a 3, 4, or a 5, then you would use that global online assessment. Now these have to be completed, like Carrie said, by September 19th. And again, I just put in this cheat sheet so you would follow that same process that Carrie had already mentioned. Once you have done the initial assessment card, we are going to hold right now, but you would create a benchmark and populate the levels based on that initial assessment. But again, we pause at this moment and you'll get an email from your EAL consultant when we're good to go and add a benchmark. But again, not due on September 19th. We just need that initial assessment card. So once you have that created, you want to make sure that the grade 1 teacher is aware. It is very important, especially if they are coming out as a EAL level 2, they are not going to be receiving marks. And so we want the teacher to be able to have this conversation with the parents and inform them that they will not be receiving marks in the core subject areas, but they will be continuing to receive that language support and to really go over the benchmarks and make them fully aware that their child is coded with that EAL coding. So on the next slide, I just provided kind of a quick little summary sheet so you can kind of go through that process and make sure you're hitting all of those steps. Now, if there are any other possible 303 students, maybe there are some teachers coming up to you saying, you know, I'm starting to see maybe there might be some language needs. Um, we would refer you to go and first contact your EAL consultant to have a little conversation about that student story, because we don't want you gathering all this evidence and then we find out there's something that maybe would prevent that coding. So talk to your consultant, and a reminder that no kindergarten students will be coded with a 303. We will continue to give them that time. They are already in a very literacy rich environment, so we give them that time in kindergarten before we would go forward with that 303 coding. So on the next slide, you'll kind of see who should be considered for a 303 code versus not considered. First is that they must be born in Canada, and then the most important being that their language at home is something other than English. And so we did go through this kind of process last year in June. It's very similar, but just wanted you to have these as well. And so you'll see on the next slide, we have that flow chart. Is a nice little way that you can kind of go through and really do some checks and see, is this student able to have that 303 coding. So then on the next slide, just a reminder that we do have, if we say, you know what, yes, let's go forward with gathering that evidence. We did create a template where we have some universal guiding questions that you could use to get that evidence. And so there is a picture prompt in this universal document, but you are welcome to use maybe a science experiment and you take a picture and the student gets to talk about that. Or there's a math, maybe they're doing some manipulatives and they're working on a math problem. So the picture prompt is there, but you are welcome to put in a different prompt. It's great because then that has meaning for that student and they will have that vocabulary to really speak on that. And so on our EAL course site, we have this universal document where you can actually document that conversation that you would have with the student. And then as well, we did create a little YouTube video of what this process would look like. So if you're unsure what that conversation might look like, here's a YouTube video where you can go through, and we went and talked to a student and document it. So you'll be able to look at that video. Again, there are many possible examples. We just wanted to have this universal document to kind of make it easy, but you are welcome to use other opportunities. I do want to note that for 303, we usually are looking at that grade 1, grade 2 level, possibly grade 3, but always reach out if there are other students and you want those questions. Talk to your EAL consultant. But again, you could use things like visual journals. They were sent out to many of the schools. So here's some lovely pictures that we have from Prince of Peace School, where they documented some of their learning in the visual journal, and you could have a conversation about that. You could use picture prompts. You could take a picture of your playground or your learning commons, or like I talked about, you could use your science or math activities, take a picture, and then have that conversation with the student. So once you have compiled all of your evidence, you will email your EAL consultant, and then they will review and then approve or not approve. And then you will continue that same process where you will administer the speaking assessment and then create that EAL Initial Assessment Card and attach that evidence from the speaking assessment into EdForms. So again, if you're looking for more information on the coding of 303, it's on our EAL course site under DLCT Quarter. So the registration process has the speaking assessment, and then we also have outlined the 303 transition. So you'll see on the next slide, it shows you we have like our PG video, we have our PG recording, we have the universal document. So all of that is there, but of course, if you're ever having trouble, it takes you more than a minute, please reach out to your EAL consultant. So the next couple of slides are just some some great resources for your team. So we have the EAL Toolkit, which has some really great resources that teachers could use and implement in the classroom. Of course, we have our EAL course site. where you can get all information. Our EAL Collecting Evidence Google site. So we know that date, November 21st, is coming up very quickly. So this is a great place to start in collecting your evidence. We also record and have all our PG sessions on our YouTube channel. Link and subscribe. As well, we have our Insignia IMC EAL resources. So again, these are clickable. You can go and take a look and show your teachers. And of course, we have our EAL newsletter. So please, if you want to be part of it, you can scan, and we send it out monthly. We focus on a country, and we also keep some timely documents or anything new that we create, we will put in there. And of course, if you ever have any questions, please reach out to the EAL team. We're happy to support. We know it's very busy right now. We just want to say thank you for all that you are doing, but always feel like you can reach out. You are never bothering us. So at this time, I'm going to stop the recording. And then if there are any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, or you could